Hello, I am Chico Maitsquidlia Matlafantli, and I wanted to talk a little bit about death and dying as understood by the Mexica, our ancestors. So a little bit about me before I begin. I am a Mexican-American artist. I live in Mexico City. I'm from California, and American thought and spirituality, and I'm also a dancer, hence my regalia that I'm wearing, which today I dressed in black with a relationship of man to dying. So in Mesoamerican thought, there is no distinction between the living and the dead. Life and death are two manifestations of the same reality. Neither can exist without the other. And this is quite common in Mesoamerican necklace, which is half skull and half living. It's a recreation in clay of a pre-Hispanic piece, and it describes this idea of the duality of life and death. And this painting here does the same thing. So it's like you could see the figure half alive and half dead, and embodying this space simultaneously. So this painting is a more elaborate version of the same. So here you see the figure related with time and space. So one thing to keep in mind about the idea of the body in Mesoamerican thought is that in Western thought, especially if you're like a Christian, the idea is that you have one soul and one body, and that soul is somehow independent of your body. When you die, it goes to heaven or hell or one of the other afterlives, and that soul is somehow contained within it as your personality, your ego, your thoughts, like the person that you are. The idea is very different in Mesoamerican thought. So we actually have many different souls living within us, and each of these souls or these animistic energies controls and is part of us in a different way. So here, the head is associated with the tonality and the heavens. So, because everything in the universe is a mirror of everything else, the body is itself a mirror of the universe. The head is associated with heaven, the heavens, the heart is associated with the earth, and the liver is associated with the underworld. So each of these is an independent being, like a soul, that has its own memory, are controlled both by the head and by the heart. Love and emotion is controlled by the liver and the heart. So we can never be fully happy, and we can never be fully realized in a certain sense, because we aren't controlled by a single soul the way we think of the West. We're controlled by all of these different souls who have all of these competing ideas about who they are and who we are. And so consequently, as human beings, we're constantly driven in different directions. It's like our desires are contradictory. We're paradoxical because we are composed of all of these different animistic entities who are themselves individuals and which compose us. So in this painting, you see the head associated with time and space. Here is east, blue is south, west, and north, and time. And then they're associated with the levels of the cosmos. The tonali is the source, is where we get our destiny, and it's the source of ideas, thoughts, and some of our personality. Our heart is associated with earth, and the soul that resides there, the teolia, is associated with the idea of your personality, así tal cual, like the person that you think you are emerges from the teolia, and the liver emerges from the underworld, and it's the site of passion, love, vice, envy, greed, hate, all of these really powerful emotions, both positive and negative, that are difficult for us to control, emerge from the underworld and through our livers and take position, part of who we are. So when you die, all of these different souls travel and have different destinies. So this painting here is a painting which describes the death of the different souls and what happens to them. So ultimately, this is the painting that I'm working on right now. My newest project is a painting of the journey of the different souls in the afterlife and where they go and what happens to them. So ultimately, when you die, the different souls reunite with Ometeo and become one in them. Ometeo is the Ometeo is like everything that exists. Mesoamerican religions are pantheistic, and the idea behind them is that everything that exists is a manifestation of one single truth, and that truth is Ometeo. You and I, everything that exists, are manifestations of Ometeo. We exist as individuals. Our idea of ourselves as individuals is an illusion. We don't exist apart from the universe, but because of our egos, we think that we do, and we conceive of ourselves as individuals. But in fact, we are part of this. There is an idea of something that's kind of like reincarnation. These souls are eternal, can't die. However, you as an individual do die. It's like when you die, your thoughts, your memories, your ego, all of that is stripped from your being, and what's left is the pure essence of Ometeo, and that is reincarnated as another human being. That human being is different than the person that you think you are now. That person is united and one in Ometeo, whereas you think of yourself as an individual. And that is what's stripped away. So in this painting, you can see the body dying. So here is a man. His head, he has a head of Mictlantecutli that he's dying. His Ihiotl in the form of this skeletal being. So our different souls are also related to our bodies physically. Like you can't separate spirit and physicality in the Mesoamerican mind. So the Ihiotl is related to the body as shit and as gas. Something like that. It's like that's an expression of your Ihiotl leaving your body. So it leaves his body through his rear and takes the form of this skeletal being with a skeletal head. So the Ihiotl, above it, I painted the heart of the mountain. The Ihiotl is going to return to the underworld, lose all of the individuality that made it part of who you are in particular, and become another undifferentiated Ihiotl in the underworld, which will be reborn with another human being later on. So here it's traveling to the underworld to take up its place again with Ometeo. Here is the heart. So these are actually both manifestations of the heart leaving the body. So our heart, our Ihiotl, is expressed in the body, composed of wind, and the mouth is the mouth of a Hekal, the lord of the wind. And it's the breath of this man leaving his body and returning to Ometeo. So I'm going to describe in much more detail what happens to your heart in just a minute. And then here is one of his spirit animals leaving his heart in the form of a bird, in this case, a hummingbird. So, so the blood is emerging from the heart, which is right here, and the bird, which is the spirit animal. So we all possess nawali, or spirit animals. A powerful magician can transform into their spirit animal and take that form in this world. Or they do it consciously and travel as their spirit animal through the spirit world and get messages from the ancestors and the gods there. All of us travel to the spirit world as our spirit animals when we sleep, and that's what our dreams are. We can also do it when we take sacred medicine like peyote or ayahuasca or something like that. So our hearts are birds. We all have many different nawali, different spirit animals, and they're not just animals. They can be stones, feathers, balls of fire, hurricanes. They can be all of these different manifestations, all of which are spirit others. And the spirit other dies when you die. Either in this plane or in the plane of the spirit. However, we have one in particular, a special one, which is our heart. You can have many nawali. So your heart takes the form of a bird or a butterfly, depending on the bird, and you can feel its bird nest through its feeding, which is like at the top is the tonali. The tonali is associated with the heavens and the sun. And here the tonali leaves the crown of his head in the form of a serpent. So that the tonali is expressed physically in the body as hair and nails and things that grow. And it's the heat that we contain within us. And here the tonali leaves the body. It says it's reconnecting. Sorry for the pause. It said it was reconnecting. So the tonali leaves the body and returns to Omeyokan, where it joins with Ometeo in the 13th heaven and waits there to be reborn. So of all of these, so the destiny of the tonali and the Ihiotl is fairly simple. It's like they return to their place of origin in the underworld or in the heavens, as undifferentiated. They're not so related to your individuality. They're both a little bit amorphous. The one that's most related to you and the person that you think of yourself as being is your heart. And that's really where your ego lives. So that one has a much more complicated afterlife. So I'm going to share that afterlife with you through this painting. So this is a story which describes the afterlife of the heart soul. So the heart soul travels for 4 years to Mictlan, to the underworld, the world of the dead. So one of the words for the underworld, aside from Mictlan, means the polishing place. When the heart soul travels to the underworld, it's conceived of as being like a rough stone. And as it travels, it's polished and burnished so that all of the impurities are swept away, are rubbed away. And what's left when it reaches Mictlan in the 9th level of the underworld is the pure essence of Ometeo. These impurities that are burnished away are thoughts and desires, your personality, and your ego are all washed away in this 4-year journey through the underworld until what reaches the throne of Mictlantecutli is a pure essence of Ometeo. And that is what goes to Tlalocan, the storehouse of souls, where it waits until it's reborn as another human being later on. This new human being isn't you. It's not reincarnation in the sense of in the Hindu or Buddhist sense. It's a different kind of reincarnation. It's like your heart soul will continue being human. And all of the things that make us human, all of these emotions, which we all share, of love and hate and desire and envy and greed and all of these things, all of us possess, because all of that comes from your death, with one exception, which I'll explain in a minute. So for most people, this is what happens. So the metaphorically what happens is you reach a river, Apo no Owayan, which is the river which runs around the edge of the underworld. The edge of this is also called the place of dogs. And on the banks of the river are many dogs that are red, black, and white. So when your soul reaches there, it will ask a white dog to help you swim across the river. And the white dog will respond, I can't help you because if I do, I'll become dirty and I don't want to mess up my fur. So then you ask the black dog, and the black dog says, I can't help you because if I were to help you guide across the river and through the underworld, you would lose me in the darkness of the underworld because I'm black and you won't be able to see me. So I can't help you either. So then you ask the red dog, and the red dog willingly offers to be your guide through the underworld. So you tie a rope around its neck and swim with it across the river, which is the first of the 9 levels of the underworld. The second of the 9 levels of the underworld is a place of crashing mountains. The idea of these things is not that the dog is going to help you evade these difficult trials. Rather, you're required to pass through these trials. Every single one of these trials shines and polishes your heart and returns you to a fit state for being in Tlalocan and before Mictlantecutli. So you reach the crashing mountains, and your soul is spun and polished and ground and crushed within the crashing mountains. So you keep on going. Here is the path is indicated by this rope, which is also the Milky Way. And you reach the place of obsidian winds. And these winds rush through the sky and cut at you to purify your soul. And then you reach the place of these frozen cold winds, which do the same thing. You continue going and you reach the place of human banners. The place of human banners is a place where you lose all weight and substance. And you float into the air and are crashed into each other. And as you're going, you're losing all of these things. You're losing your memory. You're losing your ego. You're losing all fear. You continue to the place of the heart-eating beast. The heart is I'm sorry. It doesn't stop there. It continues here. You continue to the place of arrows. The place of arrows is the place where all arrows who are ever lost at any war find themselves, and they're flying constantly through the air, piercing the people who are traveling through the place of arrows. Finally, you go through the place of the heart-eating beast. The heart-eating beast is, they're sometimes described as jaguars, and they consume the hearts of everybody who passes through there, which is to say that this is the final point, the point at which your ego is completely consumed and dissolved, and your teolia, the source of individuality, ceases to exist, and you become pure in joy and love in the pure essence of Ometeo. And then finally, you reach the lowest level of the underworld, where your soul confronts the Lord and Lady of the Dead. And this is called, also known as a place with no smoke hole, which is to say it's a place with Ometeo and is ready to be reborn. So that is the basic trajectory of the soul, and it's a metaphor which describes the death of the self and our reunification with Ometeo. However, many things happen to us in death. Death is a very complicated process in the Mesoamerican mind. So for one thing, and this is something that I think can be difficult for Westerners to come to terms with, death is in most senses not any kind of a reward. You don't go someplace bad because you were bad, and you don't go someplace good because you were good, necessarily. Death is something that is chosen for you by the Tadeo. So most people, when you die, especially if you die of old age, or you just lead an ordinary life and that's the way you die, you go to this particular underworld. However, Tlaloc can choose you, Tlaloc, the Lord of Rain. So if you drown, people who commit suicide by drowning, people who are hit by lightning, and certain kinds of diseases, cancer among them, are diseases that are considered wet diseases, and that means you were chosen by Tlaloc, and you will go to Tlalocan. Tlalocan is the storehouse of souls, is a rainy paradise of mist and flowers, and that's where you will live until your soul eventually returns to Ometeo and then is reincarnated. Another possibility is the tree of breasts. If you're a baby who was born, who died before they had left the breast, before they'd eaten corn, they would go to the tree of breasts, which is in the heavens, and it's this tree where breasts grow instead of flowers, and a mist of milk flows among its branches. And these babies live there for a period of 52 years until they are reborn on earth. In this case, as a men and women they had always been meant to be, with their same tonality. They do not go through this process of returning to oneness with Ometeo. And the final path towards death, which is the most beautiful, is one which you do in fact earn. So for most people, death is this process of disintegration and return to Ometeo. So one way to think about the soul, the Teolia, is that it has this energy inside it. And this energy flows out and spreads into the world. So we can affect each other through our Teolia. If you're mean to somebody and you say something, if you spread like gossip, say, or you say something racist or awful to another person, your Teolia is diminishing their Teolia. It's taking it and shrinking it and making it less than it had been. When you do something that's really beautiful and powerful, if you are generous to another human being, if you are a teacher, an artist whose work is devoted towards helping, your Teolia can infuse not only in your body, but the things that you do. So it's like, in my case as an artist, when I make a painting, this painting is filled with my Teolia. My Teolia is inside of it. And when another person looks at it, if my art moves them, the Teolia in my painting infuses their heart, and their Teolia infuses the painting, and both grow. And in the meantime, my Teolia grows for having made theirs grow. So it's the same thing through negative things, is that you can diminish something, diminish the Teolia. People who are really depressed are considered to have a Teolia that has been stolen from them. So if you're a person whose Teolia has grown so powerful that your body can no longer contain it, then you are said to have Teoyolotl, a divine heart. And that does not go to Mictlan. So if you have achieved a divine heart, which can be the most classic way to achieve this was a warrior dying in battle. You immediately achieve a deified heart. But you could be a statesman, a philosopher, a poet. I think in the modern context of the world we live in today, I would say if you're like a healthcare worker right now in the pandemic and you're sacrificing your life for the sake of others, if you are somebody fighting on behalf of global warming, if you're going to other countries or within your own community and doing what you can to help people who are underprivileged. It's like all of these things cause the Teolia of the people that you're helping and your own Teolia to grow. And when you die, your Teolia doesn't go to the underworld. It goes to Tonatiuh Chan, and that's where it will dwell. And that's where your soul will dwell. So it lives there for 4 years, and so this is another complicated heaven. From morning to noon, the souls of men fight on behalf of the sun. The sun is traveling across the sky, battling demons as he goes, and the souls of the men who have achieved deified hearts fight with him and join him in his battle. At noon, the sun is passed to the women who have died this way. The most classic way is to have died in childbirth, in which case a woman who dies in childbirth goes straight to Siwatlampa, the heaven of women, and they join in the battle of the sun from midday to sunset. The rest of the time, lies flitting in this garden, sucking the flowers of joy, of happiness, as a beautiful prayer says. But the other thing that they do is that when there's a human being on earth who's worthy of that Theodia, so for example, myself again as an artist, it's like the artists that I love so much who have lived in the past. I don't know, Frida Kahlo, Rembrandt, all these artists whose work really fills me with inspiration, including the artists whose names I will never know, the painter of the Codex Borgia. These artists have filled me with Theodia, and their Theodia descends from the heavens and fills my heart. And that is a form of immortality. That's a form of, it's the only way actually to achieve this kind of immortality. So it's still not a personalized immortality. It's not about your ego, and it's not about your self and individuality. It's not about your memories, but it's about this kind of wider energy and thought process, which continues to live and continues to inspire those who have lived after you. So the Mesoamerican worldview in terms of death leaves space for this kind of like an ongoing existence through of the life of the soul, in terms of inspiration towards inspiring others and helping others to grow and learn. So that's kind of like a brief overview of this idea. I'll be working on this painting and these different paintings and the story of the journey of the soul in the afterlife in the coming weeks, and actually probably a couple months. And thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.